Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Blast.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to That Silverline Show on Tuesday.
Yes, it just came in at the nick of time.
You absolutely did. Aaron joined us right as the intro was rolling, so we got to get going.
You'll be all by yourself tonight. I think did Jose say he was showing up, or
He might. He got up at 5 a.m. this morning, and it's going to be super late for him, so we'll see. But
so he's probably home sleeping.
Probably
sleeping on comics jobs.
Exactly. Mackenzie is also sleeping because she's got that surgery super early, so
no excuses.
All right, but yeah, buenos aires to you, Vic, and happy. I've heard in the nerd communities we called it a self-love day because, let's be honest, we don't have partners here.
Sorry, Vic. Good evening, Karmic Nerds.
Yes. And yeah, Aaron is here.
See, Vic. But you can't escape me. I haunt your dreams.
Yep. Tonight we'll be talking about panel layouts for comics.
Oh, yeah.
And the joy of that. So that's what we'll get into, but we didn't get a chance to catch up before the show, as we sometimes do. So since it's just the two of us, Aaron, you were here at the beginning. We just started.
Yeah, you are here at the beginning.
Yes. But Aaron, what have you been up to recently?
I've been working on the 3rd issue of the Obsoletes. I could say that, and then my own comic, which is Knock the Barbarian. So I had 2 comics. Video game wise, I'm actually attempting to, because I used to not. I used to play one video game at a time, and I realized my stack was getting bigger. So I've attempted to actually play multiple video games at once, and it's actually turning out okay.
Okay.
So I'm playing one called Chorus, Chorvs, but I think it's pronounced Chorus.
Yeah.
That's a super fun game. And then I think I have like Estirago, Curse of the Stars, some indie game, Cyberpunk 2077, which is fun, and then old Ratchet and Clank games on PlayStation 3.
Are you doing just a main mission run of Cyberpunk, or are you doing a bunch of side missions?
I'm doing a side mission. So I got through the main intro, and I'm just picking at the side missions. And yeah, I think the last one I did was helping like a Buddhist monk. So I'm like really in the game. Yeah. So
there's a lot of really fun world building, but those side missions, like, and once you go down that path, you realize you're like, oh, I'm 100 hours in.
Yeah, and so I'm playing. I knew, like, when I looked at Cyberpunk, I'm like, it's gonna be a long game to finish. And so I'm gonna play other games where I do this, because if not, I will never, like, because I've done that where like, oh, I'm just gonna stick to Cyberpunk, and then because I don't have a lot of time to play games sometimes, like at those few months or whatever, I'm playing it, like everything else starts coming out I want, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start playing it in sequence or whatever, playing multiple ones at once. So yeah. Okay. Movies I haven't really watched. I've been watching, strange enough, a lot of TV shows about cults. I don't know. I went down that rabbit hole, so I'm watching documentaries on different cults or whatever. Still watching my Robotech series. I'm always seem to be watching that. The thing is super long. I've seen it before, multiple times. And then I'm watching Dota, the Dragon's Blood.
I need to watch Dota still, but I realized that last year they put the original Robotech on Crunchyroll, so I started rewatching that.
Yeah. It's funny. So
yes,
they actually did. It actually, at least on my version of PlayStation 5, it has not broken yet. Now that of course, now that Vic has said that, my PlayStation tries to start smoking in the background here and stuff. So yes.
Yeah, I'm playing it on PC, and with the updates, it's been running really well. And I'm doing all right, Tommy. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing. We're actually on a date, Tommy. I mean,
yes,
it's internet date.
Exactly. Not really doing anything today. My next date is actually going to be this weekend, going to see Ant-Man. Kind of avoided Valentine's Day.
Oh, what? Did Ant-Man come out today, or is it Friday?
I think Thursday. Oh,
okay, yeah. The
midnight show. Thursday at midnight, so Friday.
This is the fourth one, right?
For Ant-Man?
Yeah, or is this the third one?
This is the second Ant-Man. No, this is the third Ant-Man. Yeah, this is Ant-Man, Ant-Man the Wasp, and then this is Ant-Man and the Quantum something.
Okay, so this is the one.
Yeah, but he also had a lot of stuff in Civil War and some of the stuff. So it kind of felt like the fourth one, but it's actually just the third one for him, I think.
Okay, so Thor was the one that's had 4 movies out.
Yes, because killing. Yeah, I mean, if you're into it, the wait between it, especially since they took so much time just to focus on TV shows. If you're following the MCU series, it's kind of like, man, I haven't done my thing in a while.
Yeah, because I've watched WandaVision, and I haven't watched any of the other TV shows. I've heard they're hit or miss. The thing is, not against it, it's just it gets watching. It's like usually I'm drawing when I watch TV, and a lot of action shows. If there's action on screen and I'm drawing, I'm constantly rewinding to figure out what I missed, and it gets so boring. I watch stuff I listen to. So
I still think that they should have gone with the classic the Ant-Man theory, in that he would crawl up Thanos' butt and then expand once he got inside.
Didn't he do that with somebody's nose at one time too?
I think so.
I know they just did that in The Boys, where they crawled up somebody, another guy's, and then
yeah.
It's like, okay, wow.
That was the start of a season 2. That was He's got right in there.
Yeah, they don't even mess around. Is it? I thought no. So season 3 is coming.
Yeah, I think it was
What?
the start. I believe it might have been the start of season 3.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think there's
'cause-
3 seasons of The Boys out. Right?
Yeah, I think that was like how they started season 3. It was like, all right, we're just inside a guy's junk.
I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a few. I've been wanting to watch some of the fantasy, and I want to start watching the DC animated movies on HBO Max.
hmm
I've seen Justice League War and Justice League Atlantis multiple times, so I know what happens there. So I'm watching Son of Batman. So kind of
Got the movies, yeah.
to draw with, that's true. Yeah. They just put the
The Thanos theory, yes.
it was underrated. They just put the second Raid movie on one of the like Netflix or something.
Yeah.
The Raid movies are great, and the second one was awesome.
I need to start watching Last of Us. I haven't got HBO set up. I had it for a while, and then I
The
switched
problem
over.
is go ahead.
I switched it over to like other streaming services, and now I'm still watching stuff on those. So I don't want to switch over and get HBO again until.
The problem is I played the game years ago, and I thought about watching the show, but if they're staying as close to the story as possible, I'm like, well, I've already seen it.
Right, but
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's different. I mean, I know the
Yeah.
ending.
yeah, I
If they
believe
stick to it.
I think I don't know if they're going to use the same ending, but I know that they had said they're being really faithful to the game.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, it's Pedro Pascal, so you gotta watch it for him.
Gods and Monsters is that the one that's set in like World War II? Justice League Gods and Monsters. I think that there was one that was like set in World War II or something. Like really cool. It's on my list to watch.
Mhm.
I own a lot of I used to just buy just the Justice League animated movies. So now I'm going back with HBO Max since I can stream the little Batman and other ones in between.
Yeah.
And they're so loosely connected. Well, they get more connected later on. At the beginning, they're very loosely connected, and then they get more interconnected as the movies go on. So playing the same team.
Yeah, Pedro. Yeah, he's really good at playing a specific type of person. But
I never played the second game, but considering what they did to the storyline, I wasn't really interested. I heard enough like little what they did in the second game. I'm like, no, I didn't want to do that.
Batman's a vampire.
Okay, Gods and Monsters. I'll have to look it up then. I think that sounds really familiar. Like I've seen that. There's like 25, 30 Batman anime. I'm going through, but I'm trying to like fit the anime. I actually have that on I think DVD or Blu-ray. And I started watching it and then I got interrupted or whatever. I'm trying to like I'm like right now my goal is to finish Robotech and to finish Dota and then move on to those because I always get sidetracked and then I go like, oh, what was that other series I was watching? So I'm trying to finish series before I get sidetracked to something else.
No, I mean, yeah, that's true. Pedro Pascal.
Care for special kid.
Yeah.
Oh, he's talking about the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I didn't really see. I don't really think the cast members match the game that much, but I don't know. Like I said, I played the game. The game was really well done. I've thought about watching it, but I may just wait till it's all out. That's kind of like the problem with some of these shows that are based off stuff that I've like games or comics. Is like, well, if you're being really faithful, it's like when I saw the Sin City movie, like I'd read those Sin City comics to death. Like I do that movie inside and out before I even saw the first one. I'm like, I know exactly what's gonna happen. It was super fun, and I still liked the movie. It was just kind of like, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I watched The Last of Us. I know in the game they have not explained where the fungus viral thing comes from. I don't think they did. Maybe in the second one they did.
I believe. Well, I think they just kind of covered it in that flash at the beginning, but it's the I can't remember the name of it, but it's the fungus that essentially controls ants and other insects. And
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, and so what happened is it so that fungus is actually it's full, as far as we know, it'd be fully capable of spreading to humans and actually infecting us. The only reason it doesn't is because our body temp is too high for it to actually. Yeah, they said if that one part of it were to evolve, we would actually have a zombie epidemic.
We can only hope.
Right.
Yeah, and have one more physically. Yeah,
yes,
it does. I still like owning stuff, even on video games. I still like owning some things. I mean, I've even thought about I'm playing Chorus on Xbox for Game Pass, but I like that game so much right now that I've thought about, oh, how much is it to buy a physical copy, even though I don't technically need it. I don't know, because I just assume I won't have Game Pass forever and stuff.
Right. Game Pass is great though. Yeah.
Did you ever play Chorus yet, the spaceship one?
Not yet. It's on my list though, so I'll be getting.
It's pretty fun. Yeah. They add 2 things in that game that, because I played other spaceship you're dogfighting, but they add 2 moves so far in the game that have really made it fun. They made like basically a drifting mechanic, like in car games, like cars where you drift. But it's really fun because in the ship you can go fast and hit the drift like really do a sharp turn and then shoot, and like that's really fun. So I'm like, and I haven't played a spaceship game like Star Fox and stuff like in years, so it was cool to actually play some of this. Yeah, it's worth it. It's almost like a quasi open world game, like a sandbox game, but in a spaceship.
Okay.
I've never seen anything like it before, and it's really pretty fun.
I've probably been to. I play a game called Elite Dangerous, which is a simulator where you're in a spaceship, and that's the whole thing. They just added on foot stuff to it, but yeah, go
in there.
All right. So about the layouts, Vic, getting this on subject.
I do
avoid grids. Yep.
I have found a lot of times in the Image comics, I started doing the anti-grid thing. I actually don't mind grids. I pretty much use grids. Now, I will try to avoid straight, like the 9-point grid, like in Watchmen, where it's like perfect, same thing over. But I try to keep mine boxed. Every once in a while, I'll put in a circular panel, but a lot of times I don't go too overboard with like all the crazy like panels that are like cut in half or weird angles. Just because sometimes it makes the reading kind of weird, and I'm to the point, like, the easier it is for people to focus on the pictures inside the box, the better it is. Like if you're trying to struggle with the layout of the panels of where to go, then you've defeated all the work you've done inside the boxes, the panels. So
I don't know if I particularly have anything against the grid. I have something against too much of the same layout back to back to back.
I try to break that up as much as I can, at least.
Yeah. It's like if they have like a standard grid or whatever, like 3 rows of 3 panels or whatever, and then it cuts in the next page is a splash, or it's doing something else weird with it, doing a mosaic layout, whatever, and then get to whatever, like that's fine. But if it is all grids, it might feel a little dry. If it was all mosaics or whatever, then it's gonna my eyes will bleed by the end of it, and I'll have to go back and reread it because I didn't know I just saw.
Dean Zachary does a lot of mosaic,
and
non-gridded, and he does a good job at him. I've done those. I'm trying to think. I've done those a little bit, but yeah, because I mean, like Watchmen is like the big famous comic, and it used a 9-panel layout, I think, through the whole thing. I think that was their thing. They never changed the format. But I do think, like in my Knock the Barbarian comic, the one thing I'm trying different things. One, I'm changing the color of the border panel. So the border panels in that one, it's all black background, and the border panel lines are gold. Just something different. I think the one thing that's funny, I think sometimes with technology we get so caught in what traditionally is done that we forget, like, well, yeah, with this technology we can like change the colors and format and do all sorts of crazy stuff, and I think that could totally work. I think it depends on the comic. I would be more willing to do crazy border panel arrangements probably in Knocked, because it's more action based and lighthearted than I would in like my other Godlings book, which I think that would probably be it. And maybe I get lazy. I always think of just like, I'm always thinking of what is the establishing shot of the page, the panel that's the biggest, and all the other stuff goes in between.
I think having a grid layout does lend itself to either your traditional talking scenes or something where it's not a whole lot of action at the moment, because you want to clearly establish who's talking, where they are, what's happening at that point.
Do that,
But when you're getting something that has a lot of action, where you can in a comic, you can try to convey every emotion in a fight, but it will get boring at a point. But to convey the emotion, that's happening with a lot of like interesting takes on the layout.
I mean, I always think it's cool when people do, and I think I have done this before, but I have to double check, where they break the panel, like if somebody punches somebody and the panel border is breaking.
Yes,
I
yeah,
think that sometimes can be a really cool effect. And I think people have done some really cool effects with the border panel, the line, like doing it jagged or curvature or whatever to make like dream sequences or make it
yeah,
jagged if you're fighting that stuff. And then of course, do judge when you need to put a like an actual panel in there, like the line panel, or just leave it blank. You kind of I mix those up too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think using different takes on layouts to convey a fight scene, so you get the impact of it because it's But also when you're doing something that's very like cerebral or psychological, like I'll go back to the stained glass panel idea, where essentially the page was a stained glass window, but each section of it was essentially a panel, and there is a person just like putting together the pieces of this mystery.
Okay, yeah, see, that's cool.
Yeah, so we're like your moment where you cut away from the grid and use the layout itself as another element of the storytelling.
Yeah. I actually did the panel layout in my Goblins book. There was a scene early on in the panel where it was a 9 grid, the basic thing, but it was these two people arguing, and in the middle is like this guard who's getting irritated because the guy's arguing with one of like this representative of the king. So he's arguing with authority. So he has these guards. But what I did is on the opposite side is like the guy arguing here and the guy arguing here. And in the middle is the guard. They're literally like he's in the middle of the fight.
Yeah.
And so as I go down the panels, I get closer and closer. But I wanted to use that panel layout to put the guard in the middle to show he's in between these two looking at him. And so sometimes with the panel arrangement, you can do that. Going borderless, I got to find the balance. Yeah, if you're doing weird panel layouts, I think it can work. I think sometimes when comics go too weird, Image sometimes, strangely enough, the ones that have the most confusing panel layouts I have read are a lot of European comics. There's been a few I've actually had to really stop and think how, because they'll do like, it's hard to explain, but it looks like border and then there's a long one next to it, and then there's one next, but you don't follow it that way. You follow it like down, then over, then down, and so it goes like 1 2 3 that 1 2 3 instead of we would read that it's confused me a few times, like, oh wait, okay. So the Japanese have always been pretty good at border panels, but they've actually don't really, well, they do some layout differently. It seems like a lot of their stuff that were just more focused on the pictures than composition. Yeah, some of them are wild. I know the big thing that
D. Grayman had some weird ones.
Which one?
Grayman. Yeah. We got to the last arc, and it's just like everyone there is based off of like Harlequins or Jesters, so they just got like a lot of really weird like stuff to make it feel like you're losing your mind as you're reading it.
Oh, see, that's pretty cool. I remember Appleseed used to, and there you can put the coin in the jar. And Appleseed, they used to, he would do a lot where like Dunan would be a full page image of Dunan, like the main character, and then there'd be panels around it. And American Comics did this a lot in the 90s, where there'd be like a full sort of image of a character, like your sort of splash shot on the panel, the bigger panel. And it was just like a girl or a guy with a gun. They do little panels around it. So, yeah, Akira always did had really good layouts. Akira was super easy to follow, and I don't think he used any sort of crazy panels. I think he was just straight up the grid, the sort of block panels. It's been a while since I've read it. I had the books over there. I should look at it again. But yeah, that guy was very easy to follow. And I've tried to study that more because I know when I first did comics, people had a hard time reading my stuff. So I really tried to focus on making it as clear as possible. Did steal from Akira? Yeah, yes. I know. I didn't even realize he did that till somebody, like one of the things, like, oh yeah, he stole Akira building to put him in like Spider-Man or Spawn. I'm like, really? And I looked at him like, oh my god, those are, because I've read Akira multiple times. I'm like, oh wow. I was like, well,
I mean, a lot of like modern like nerd culture entertainment has been like the 80s and then early 90s, like this deeply influenced all that. So I mean, the Japanese influence from Akira to Robotech and the first Gundam all the way to over here with Blade Runner and Terminator and stuff. Like everything, nerd culture in some way pulls something from one of those.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I'm trying to think. Image was the one that got really big, and I pull from. I mean, at least ideas from all sorts of a lot of ideas from video games. I always thought. I will admit, I did like the Angry Hulk movie. I liked how he used comic book panels to do transitions to scenes. I would love to see another comic book movie do that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think didn't Scott Pilgrim movie
Scott Pilgrim
do that
did,
a little bit?
a little bit.
Yeah.
She-Hulk did at times as well because that was
Okay.
She-Hulk's whole thing, is just breaking the fourth wall, save moments where she
Right.
drops from one scene to another or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't watched She-Hulk, but that makes sense. Yeah, it seems. Yeah, because I know a lot of people that like Ang Lee's Hulk. I thought it felt like a comic book movie in that sense that they're putting that to comic. Yeah, Savage Dragon's Out's a crazy always word to me. Yeah. Yes, he said what, like issue 300 or something? I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, he's always but I think he does crazy layouts and stuff too.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I also have some more questions here.
No.
Okay.
Just no.
Yes. I heard kind of over some of these naturally, which is kind of dope. Okay, so I kind of go into like the interior of the panel as well. When you're thinking about what's inside the panel, like the color, lighting, or composition behind it, does that influence your decision, like what do you think the panel around it should look like, or vice versa? Do you you have a layout for one page and you're like, well, I'm not going to put this in here because the composition would look wacky within this type of space or something like that?
Yeah, I've done that. If I know, especially as I want to stop shot with the background, and then as I go through, I kind of take away the background unless it's necessary for the next shot. But there's always where I'm focusing, and I try to also, if I'm using background colors like solid colors, I try to make that either bleed in or stand out from the rest of it. Because sometimes that what's drawing your eye first, and so I don't always win, but sometimes I do. But yeah, color's a whole another thing too, especially with panel layout, because there is a certain colors will attract the eye other places. Like I had one panel I did on my Noct comic where at the very end there's like danger, and so I want to put this sort of danger, like the little danger lines behind him. But I colored his panel orange in the back, like reddish orange, because I wanted that sort of that instills danger or something, red or reddish orange. But it's the last panel on the page, so it detracts from the first panel where you're starting to read. I mean, when you open that page, you're going to see the last panel. But I just couldn't think of any other color way that I wanted to do that, and that works. So I'm like, okay, that's going to be that. But your eye's going to be drawn to that panel when you first open that page, so it happens.
Yeah. I know when I'm writing out a script for planning out my panel count just in the writing stage, this is, I think it's weird, so I try to avoid my own writing, but I always try to keep one page in essentially what would be like one set of mood lighting, essentially. Like if one thing is set in like dead of night, dark alley, I'm going to try to and then the next scene is middle of the day Arizona or whatever. I'm going to try avoiding putting those on the same page because that pop up there. Yeah. Or unless the drawing is intentional, in which case, like at some point, like at the very end of one of those pages, I'll put the drawing, whatever, at the end there to pull you into the next one. But yeah, if it's like right in the middle of it, it looks weird to me.
Day to night transition in the middle of a page. Yeah, especially if the brighter colors are towards the end of the page, they're gonna look different. So,
yes, yeah, I mean, yeah,
I know
it's not general, so she isn't breaking the fourth wall.
That she was like what people don't realize about She-Hulk. I've read bits and pieces of her. She was like the original Deadpool character.
Yeah, 100%.
She broke the original. In fact, and I think she wasn't even the first. I think they had other characters. I think Spider-Man did. I think Howard the Duck also broke the fourth wall in some of his comics. So it'd been done many times. But I remember She-Hulk. That was John Byrne's big thing, is that she realized she was in a comic and stuff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was expected.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a spoiler of this, or if you care about this particular story, because there's nothing to do with like the big plot.
Oh, that she goes to the writer's room at the end.
Well, to the writer's room, which is very She-Hulk, but also her having sex with Daredevil and then making the Hulk smash joke. I know some people don't like it. I'm like, that is the most She-Hulk thing to ever be written for television.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying. Was She-Hulk ever? Did they ever do She-Hulk in the old Hulk TV series?
I don't know if they ever did in like the old one. Yeah, my memory of that is very.
I know they put a Daredevil and Thor in the Hulk series at one time.
Yeah.
It was like a made for TV movie that had those two in it. I remember as a kid watching, it was like it's Thor and Daredevil, which I think were the only superheroes they could really do without having to, like, you know, the powers were okay enough that, you know, Thor I don't think flew anything. He just smacked stuff with his hammer.
Yeah. And the cartoon, yes.
Yeah. I know in the cartoon she was.
Okay, getting back on subject. As a writer, do you ever send layouts to your artists? Usually, if I get asked for it, or if it's like very important for what I'm trying to convey. But usually, I try to approach everything as a co-create or collaborative experience.
Yeah.
Because I want to have the artist have that much ownership over it, where they feel like they're not just doing someone else's busy work, like they're actually creating something themselves. So
right.
I'll also always pose that conversation with them, like, we're in my description for the page of like, I was kind of thinking this. Do you get what I'm saying? Would you like me to send my own layout, or would you like to send me your idea for a layout for this? And usually they'll send me their idea, and it's always what I pick, because if we're on the same page with it, it's always
it does not need it or whatever.
Yeah,
but I do that. I would
it's hands under immediately. Yeah, I mean, it's if it was something where, like, if we're doing something for like a chain book or whatever, like if we're working for a bigger publisher and neither of us have control over the IP, it might be like a thing where, like, all right, well, I know this person is working on this 3 issues down the line, so we have to do it this way. So I'll send them like what I think needs to be done in order for the other thing that they're working on in a different office for, like, you know, an event or whatever. But everything is very collaborative. So I'm always like, they think this would be cool. What do you think? And then they'll send me something back. I'm like, yes, do that. Absolutely.
Which is what he'll say if we ever collaborate on something. He'll be, you know, it goes one way. You know, what was it? It's like God to me to Tim. That's how it goes. Yeah. No, I mostly do layouts and stuff myself. Doing that to me, not naming names, it's your own fault. Doing that. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I actually, from a personally, I wouldn't mind getting layouts from a writer, because it actually takes part of my job away from me.
Yeah.
That way I'm not interpreting your script. That, you know, if you guys want to do layouts for me, I'm like, yeah, sure, just send me what you want to draw. I don't care.
Yeah. That's also the thing, is like, if you're having a good relationship with your artist and you talk with them and like understand where they are in terms of like time crunch, we're like I'm getting these through, like, I'm just really busy right now. I'm like, how much of this do you need me to cover?
Yeah. Like getting down to like, you know, just get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you're an artist as well, and then, because most of the time I don't really write a script. My scripts that I write for myself are very bare bones, and I don't really. I describe like in a little sentence what happens in the panel, because I already know. It's mostly just scripts for me, and mostly just to keep track of the dialogue flow. the flow of the dialogue. And so I'll put the little script of the panel like what's supposed to go here. But then once I start laying it out, I look at the dialogue and see how it flows with the panel layout. I try to keep in my stories like a perpetual motion, keep things kind of moving forward, perpetual motion going forward. So
yeah. I mean, as long as you want to, like, that's also another thing. Is like your panel layout needs to be congruent with the tempo that you set for your storyline. So if it's a fast-paced action comic, you're gonna be doing probably fewer but more flashy, or even like angled in such a way that the panel layout helps the reader get through it at the tempo which the story is going.
Right.
Whereas like moments where Wolf Hunter will go from like an action sequence where it is like we've done like dog fights where you have a 3-panel page because it's you want to see the big planes shooting guns. That's the cool part about it. But then you get to back room. I'm lying to you, you're lying to me. Interrogation type scenes. You might slow things down, crave yourself a bunch of small panels because it's just you and the artist aren't trying to get anything flashy in the moment. You're trying to give the letterer space to put in a bunch of dialogue, essentially.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to give some emotion, and a lot of times if I draw stuff, I expect a lot of stuff to be covered up by word balloon panels, because you can only leave so much space sometimes. And then it's up to the writer if he wants to add all of his dialogue or trim it down. That's up to them. I do know as writers that sometimes when I get an artist who's like, okay, I want the spaceship to fly into the thing, crash land on the planet, and then he gets there, starts shooting bad guys, and then all the aliens running over the hill, and do that in a 7-page panel comic. It's like, okay, that's gonna be really small, dude. Like each panel, I mean, that's just basic physics. I can't make them big unless they're super. So
that's and you're lucky if they tell you to do that across more than one panel.
Pacing is hard.
A lot of people need to get better at the pacing. We don't need to bring speed for dialogue heavy scenes. If there's a fight, it doesn't be that exactly. I mean, I like when people understand pacing enough that they know where to break things. It's like the moment where like it's the classic fight scene of boom, pow, crack, wherever everything's just like finish punch, finishing or whatever. And then you get to like setting up a final blow or setting up something, and you get the panel of the punch like hitting the chest or whatever, and then the punching through into the next one or something like that. So you end up getting this moment where they knew what their pacing was doing. They knew exactly where to like flip it, essentially to build investment or to relieve tension.
Right. I think also pacing has to do with the Vic is saying pacing is also know when to stop and take a pause. Splash pages are really good. 2-page splash pages are really good at like pausing those key moments, especially in battles and stuff. But a lot of people, and I think I would much rather see with dialogue more spaced out than having somebody speak like 3 sentences in one panel. Like just it, because you just and also study how people speak. I know a lot of people, especially in comics, when they have characters talk or write complete sentences, which you should write complete sentences, but sometimes not how people talk. Eastman had incredible pacing, especially in a lot of the old Ninja Turtles. But just space out your dialogue. You don't need to people put info dumps on like a few pages. And I've read a lot. I just read a comic the other day that the comic was more telling than showing, and that's something that I see a lot in comics. Just show me what's going to happen. I mean, I think the first part of the comic, I see this a lot happen in fantasy comics more than anything, because maybe I read those, where they spend the first few pages like, this empire is going for this pyre with this, and then this, and they explain all these words, and like, I don't know I don't care about any of that. What is this about? So
I mean, it's like recently, like there have been 2 examples of characters that have like had really natural dialogue that has fit really well the panel, and has done a lot to make the quality of the entire book just really stand out to me. I liked Tom Taylor's Young Superman because the kid just figured out how to be Superman. So you have moments where he gets somewhere, pats himself, and is like, well, crap. And like,
Yeah.
most natural dialogue you could have is like a teenage kid. The other one is Black Tom Cassidy in X-Force. Like, he's just kind of a weird character. Hello, Ryan, dude.
Nope.
It has been very contradictory tonight.
Nope,
We'll find something. Yeah. But Black Tom, he's speaking in third person. But then also, somehow he managed to get a a like weird Louisiana mixed with Irish accent into like written words.
Yeah.
I don't know how they managed to do it, but you hear it when you're reading it. But just having this guy who's saying like, Black Tom listens to the veg. Sleepy.
Yeah.
It's so well written.
It's funny. There's I've been reading a comic called Vamp Blade. Finished up the series. He was one of these guys that his stories were such breakneck pace, but it actually worked in the context. Yeah. I think it had to do with the humor and the sort of the slapstick sort of nature of the story, but the breakneck. I mean, there's always something random happening, but it was fun. It was well done, and it kept me reading really fast, which I like. I usually like comics. If I'm reading, I want to keep flipping that page fast.
Yeah.
I've never been a big fan of comics that have like 1,000,000,001 words.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just know usually most of the time they're telling me all this stuff, and like, you could just show that. You don't need to tell me.
The only time that I personally do the longer words on what I think is useful is when you're telling the noir story and you're at the moment where like you get that classic like the guy puts everything together.
Yeah.
But even then, that's mostly because it's been a trope that everyone's been used to for so long that having. But when it gets really what is when you combine that with good visuals, when you give the artist room to like do the same thing, and then you also have the guy putting it together in his head. When you combine the two, that's when it really stands out in the comic.
They did a really good job at that in the Sherlock TV series when they would show how he's deducing. They would focus in on things or whatever, and you could actually do that in comics really well.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I always thought that was. I was never good at writing mysteries. I don't know. I always because to me maybe because I don't write them, but I always felt there was a technique to writing an effective mystery. Because you don't want to give too enough away, but you want to give enough away so it is a balance. So I've never been.
You can always find ways to cheat it, and I find the more I study writing, the more I realize that all mystery is just cheating. It's like with Wolf Hunter, the spoilers for issue 2, which good news, issue 2 was actually getting close to mostly illustrated. We got an artist for it, but the idea for something a scene like that where a bunch of people is trapped in places, you can write a lot of dialogue. Everyone's going to be talking to each other, and all the pieces are in place. There's pieces for the wrong puzzles. The idea is that everyone is lying, or everyone is trying to keep a different mystery. But so the mystery this guy's looking at is what everyone else has no like affiliation to. So he's just given a bunch of information for puzzles that he's not actually looking at.
Okay. Yeah, comics just finding ways to cheat. It
100%,
is.
Yeah.
It's definitely a balance between the pictures and the words. I remember still my favorite comic was that just broke. That was done by Dark Horse. It was the second Dark Empire comic, the Star Wars Dark Empire.
Yeah.
And I remember even panels like they would show Princess Leia and Han Solo running down a hallway, and literally at the top in a caption would say Princess Leia and Solo runs down a hallway. Like I'm like, is this some sort of weird? That's why I started noticing. I remember that comic. It's been years, so maybe I'm thinking too much. Maybe that's not really happened. I remember reading that, going like, this thing just seems to repeat itself. Like,
that's why I can't go back and reread like Claremont X-Men because, man, that was every issue.
Well, he would just go like Storm would be, doing a wind or snow, and in her head she'd be like, well, if I can crystallize this and that and to do that, and I'm like, okay, I understand what you're trying to say, but just show me. She freezes stuff. Got it.
Yes.
So
yeah. I'll say what I thought was really good was kind of going on was Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Fast-paced panels with not a whole lot of dialogue, but just a lot of visual too. The cutting from that to all the dialogue, smaller panels, as Morbius is like, by the way, mortals, here's what you've missed.
Man. Name
New creator here, wondering what your thoughts on more code paneling. I have some very edgy Angular Orthodox paneling. Wonder if this is something to replicate. I mean, if that's the type of story that you're telling, or if that's your voice, then
The best thing I would do
yeah.
is I would just, take a layout or do a page and just have somebody read your pages.
Mhm.
Not even with the dialogue, just say, can you follow this train of sequence? I mean,
Yeah.
can you figure out what has happened? I have, as strangely enough, try to get non-comic readers to follow it. Because if you can get somebody who doesn't read comics to follow it, then you're pretty much safe with comic book readers. Because it is a language. And I've had people who don't read comics can't figure out what's going on. So if
Yeah.
your layout is enough that most people who don't read comics can generally figure out what's going on, then I think you're pretty safe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's and I mean if you're looking for like a specific styling, I mean all art is borrowing and stealing what we've seen before. You're never going to 100% perfectly copy something, but if you're like, I really like how this looks, I'm gonna always focus on doing your own take on something. Yeah, it's like if you see something that you think sells action really well in one comic, when you're doing your own comic, just kind of think about that in the background, and you'll probably figure out how your version of that looks,
or just figure out what you like, what they do well with it and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I keep Claremont's name out of your mouths.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, John Byrne was better. There, now I've started. Now it's a flame war.
Right.
With non-comic readers with no words, and it has been successful. Then I would say yes. If it's been successful that way, then I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
I've learned that when I make comics, a lot of the stuff that I feel could be a problem and people figuring it out usually never is a problem, and the stuff that I thought was clear as day, people can't figure out. And I've had this happen multiple times. So sometimes it just becomes a crapshoot, and you're always gonna have somebody who's gonna look at your comic like, I don't get it, and so just understand that's almost a guarantee. I don't understand what's going on, and so that's when you take that comic away and slap them upside the head. And what are you thinking? And give it to somebody who reads comics. But yeah, I've had people not, and I was like, I thought this was clear as day, and they just don't get it.
Yeah. I'm the weird edgy kid. I like Brubaker's X-Men.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was Chris Bacalo is is a really good artist, but there's been a few comic layouts, and there's been a few panels of some of his comics that to this day have no idea what he drew. Not a clue.
Yeah.
And I even have a hard time. I love his art, but even I have a sometimes hard time following his stuff. And it's just weird panel layout. So
like Martin has a lot of influence from Dean because I had a bunch of ferret ads in my old Protectors comics.
You influenced from Dean? I just quit while you're ahead. That guy, Dean can't draw. He's been faking it for years. Stealing my stuff is what he's been doing.
I mean that's what you gotta do. Those you don't fake it till you make it. You just keep on faking it until you fake it better than everyone else. Essentially, no one knows what they're doing.
No. And it's funny. I do think, I will say, I do think comic books are a right place to experiment in.
Oh yeah,
because I think it's the cheapest place to experiment, because there's not, if you mess up here and there, you could always go back and fix it for these. And I've done that over the years where I see something that bothers me in months out. Even after I have issues that I published the comics that have a mistake, but I'll just fix it when I see it. And then the next issues will have that mistake fixed. So I do that all the time.
Yeah.
So, and I remember there was a character who had 3 fingers in one of my comics. And I drew a cover with him with 4 fingers. And I just left it because I'm not going back and changing that. So there's some mistakes that just stay in there, and that's what it is.
All right.
So
I mean, yeah, and also like, just as like a genre as a whole, comics are already just such a weird space.
Yeah.
That are the normal tried and true method for comics is superpowered people in tights fighting what are essentially evil clones of themselves most of the time. So
yeah,
experimenting with art or whatever is,
I just read a really cool comic. It's called the Ewita Hunters, to copy Aaron's fetus's art. Yeah, I mean, Dean's not skilled enough to copy my stick figure drawings, So that's not probably going to happen. He gets the lines all wrong. I mean, if you can't draw a line, you're not doing stick figure drawings, and that's what Dean fails. So, and Dean can see,
Mhm.
all of this stuff. Um, what was the panel? I lost my train of thought. I was thinking of something. Have you ever been confused by a comic? Has there ever been comic like any specific one that's confused you? To this
Uh,
day, you have no idea what's happening in it.
not that. Well, probably, and then I probably blocked out on my head. I do know one that first thing that I like go back through it a couple times was actually Ray. Ray through was it Ray 3080 something like that. The
Okay.
from Valiant. It's not that it was like confused. It's just like the layout was so dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny
Mm.
because I like a lot of that was the one thing about the old like the Rye and Magnus is they told comics really well, but they were also very dry and to the point. It was
Yeah.
something about them, especially when the image is going on and like we're gonna do this traditional comics. I'm like, yeah, I'm not winning that one. But strange enough, now I know they were the most readable compared to Image comics, but they
Hmm.
weren't the most exciting to look at compared to the
Yeah.
Image stuff. So
Everything.
yeah.
Yeah. I think. Well, actually, no. Ninjak did have a few layouts where I'm like, let's add them in here.
And that was I think Kusada did some of or maybe did no, I think he just did covers. Yeah, Joe Kusada or something worked on Ninjak. Yeah, Ninjak was a
Yeah.
few of them. And I
The
think
yeah. Well, let's add that. Like, there's been no, because even like I think I'm not sure what exactly it is. I think because oh, what's the name? Hack and Slash. They have some
oh yeah,
confusing layouts, but it's never. I never have been pulled out of it and never been like properly confused by it because I don't know the rest of the rendering around it. As it kind of pushes you through. I think it was like some of those panels were just so busy, in addition to being awkward, that that's what kind of forces you to fall out of it.
there's been a few
Bloodshot's always good, yeah.
yeah. And Bloodshot back in the day and then the new one, some of those are the Turok. I remember the Turok ones. That was Bart Sears the one who did the original first issues of Turok? I know he did covers, I think. I don't even know what happened to Bart Sears. Bart Sears, I always considered Bart Sears the Boris Vallejo of comics in a little bit, just
Mhm.
because of Boris Vallejo was always like everyone was in a continuous state of flex,
Yeah.
and Bart Sears was the same way. I didn't think his art was bad. That was just like every guy looks like he inflated themselves. I remember the Bart Sears how to draw Bart Sears and Wizard. And it'd be like, draw this bubble and this bubble and this bubble and this bubble. Now draw a line and connect all the bubbles, and you have an arm. And I'm, okay, Bart. uh, yeah, I remember him doing, and I think he did a comic, some chrome guy, like muscular guy that was like silver chrome, and then there's a muscular girl that was gold chrome. But I don't know if it was for a comic or something. I just remember that from Bart Sears. It's been a long time.
Okay. Hello? There goes. Um, I think we actually all hit all the questions I had pre-planned, just kind of naturally talking over stuff.
And that's
Yeah.
it's funny. I think Vic's right. It was Brute and Babe. That was it. That was it.
Mm.
And it was a comic series, right? I think it was like yeah, I do remember that. Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
And that was just and it was funny because Bart Sears was so into drawing muscles that everybody was naked to a degree because the muscles were the clothing. Like, did he? No, that was not Bart Sears who did Prime for the Ultraverse. That was it wasn't Bart Sears. It was somebody else. I can't remember. I want to say Norm Brayfogle, but I don't think that's it either. No, only one. So not. It was only one. Okay, so it was only one. I knew Bart Sears was like one of the slower artists. Like he wasn't. Like he would put him on an issue or whatever, then it would take a while for him to do another issue. So yeah. Trying to think of other panels.
Any other panel related questions? If anyone in the chat has any other things that are related to panels or overall my stuff.
Yeah, well done with Tim's nonsense.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
I know we have a Kickstarter going for the Fire Rush and Cape Town.
Yeah, we need to double check on that while we're here.
I'm not sure if we made goal or not. I know I am working. The second issue of Obsoletes is penciled and being inked, and I'm like about halfway through the third issue of penciling it. So the Obsolete series will be done. Prime number 1. Okay, it was Norm Brayford. All right. I thought it was. I remember he did really good Batman stuff. I like Norm Brayford. Didn't he do the Batman Vampire one? I think that was Norm Brayford. Maybe that was somebody else. Like the Red Rain. I know Norm Brayford did one. I think it was called it was the one about a demon. It was a Vietnam guy turned into a demon. What was the name of that comic? It was actually pretty decent. He had like 2-3 series that was independent. Now I can't think of the name of the comic. But it was a guy in Vietnam, and then he inherited the ability to turn into a demon. And it was part of another like universe of comics. And I have them all. I actually read them a while ago, and they still hold up. Still
nice.
Pretty good. Yeah.
So our current Kickstarter here. We are currently...
Yeah, that guy's a punk.
Yeah. Yeah. We're currently at 1380. And I have 11 days to go. So if you're interested in either one of these comics, you can.
And Fire Rush ends that series. So that would be number 3 of Fire Rush. And then Cape Town number 1 begins the series. So it's the ending of a series and the beginning of a series.
Yes.
And
one of these has been penciled by Aaron Humphreys.
Yeah, I did some drawings on one of them.
Yep.
Fire Rush. Of course, I did that artwork back in the year 2000, I think. So,
dang, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been 23 years, 22 years.
Some of that. That's
I look at that stuff. I'm like, oh, you could definitely tell it was me, but I'm like, oh yeah.
I've changed my style since then. Yeah.
But that's what you should all judge me on. It's that new stuff doesn't matter. It's what you do here. And they showed some materials of Cape Town, I think, on there too, didn't they?
So I believe we have.
I'm not sure who there it is. I'm not sure who the exact artist on Cape Town is.
Can find out down here. J.W. Franklin.
Okay.
Yeah, I know J-Dubs.
Okay. And Mike Belcher still doing lettering.
Yes. Yeah, he is really good. Like his vibe is very much classic capes, so this is well suited for him.
Yeah. Well, he did. The same writer Brent also wrote Kalis, which I think also started a new series, didn't it?
Yeah, we're starting volume 2 on that, I believe.
Yeah, don't give me anything. I don't want any of that. It should all go to the colorists. They put in the most work. Maybe the letter. I don't know.
Maybe.
I can't type.
Give everything to the flatter.
Yeah.
No,
strangely enough, you would think that from the town alone, the title alone, that it's full of cosplayers. But it is not.
Yeah.
That's an idea for a comic too.
Yeah, no, it's what was the tagline for it? Batman in a crappy apartment.
Yeah, that actually was one of the taglines.
Yeah.
I could almost see the Cape Town, like a city full of cosplayers. Like everybody's cosplaying some character or another, and so the story is about the one guy who dresses normal.
Right.
And all the crap he has to put up with. Just reverse that.
Yes. Yeah, that going on. Obsolete's number 3 being worked on, you believe you said.
Mhm.
Wolf Hunter number 2 being worked on. Wolf Hunter is already completely written, so by the time you guys get your hands on it, I don't remember anything from already written. So,
And then
uh,
I've done. Did I show my Knock the Barbarian stuff on here yet?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Look at Knocked Over Rain a little bit ago.
Yeah, and so I'm working on that to hopefully have that done by at least summer because I'm doing 2 comics at once, and
Nice.
that's fully done and colored and art by me. And that was one where I'm trying each issue's its own storyline, so you can pick up any issue and
So,
read it, and it's its own thing.
yeah,
I'm trying to figure out a way to get away from the number ones and number twos because people go play about number twos, and so like yeah,
just make a comic, but label everything issue number 1. And
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I've actually had people complain there's too many issue number one, so I'm like, well, fine then. Every issue is a number one. It's its own thing. So yeah,
yeah. How
4,
many issues
right?
does Wolf Hunter have? Wolf Hunter has 3 actually. It's gonna be a
3.
shorter one.
Okay.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
a street clothes vigilante. It is a street
Yes.
clothes vigilante.
Exactly. Yeah, Wolf Hunter has a 3. I'm not sure what's happening with the art on Soul Senate. I haven't heard from the artist in a little bit, but Soul Senate will have 4.
Yeah, and that's being worked on right now. Issue 1, right?
I believe, yeah. It's been worked on by Jem, but I haven't heard from him in a while, so I don't know what's going on there.
The
Yeah.
classic. We don't know what's going.
Yes, I mean he lives in. Well, actually, he lives in Turkey, so we currently maybe yeah, he currently may be having to relocate due to the massive earthquakes it has had. I don't know.
Ooh.
So we'll have to. I don't know where exactly he lives. So yeah.
Ew. The Deathmate, yeah, Deathmate did do it as colors. That was the. Do you remember that when they did? It was like Deathmate Black, Deathmate Gold. It was a big crossover event by the old Valiant. I think it was Valiant.
Yeah.
And that actually was a good series. It was a big one, but they did do it. I've seen a few comics. I've seen one comic online called Buck Free Sword, like Harlan Buck Free Sword, and he did. Each issue was its own story, and I have all of his comics, and the stories kind of connect. I mean, they connect here a little bit, but you can read each story as its own thing. And I'm like, that's really good. And he actually sold really well, and I wonder if he sold well because anybody could just buy whatever they wanted.
Right.
So I'm gonna attempt that.
Yeah.
So
I'm a fan of interconnected storylines, but I'm a fan of refreshing them regularly. So like the idea of like we're gonna do 12 issues. And then we're going to do number 1 after that. So if you want a point to jump in, the number 1 is its own self-contained story, essentially.
but you mean his name was Noct, Noct.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, I remember when I first got into comics. One of we had the Sunday comics. One of them was it Prince Valiant? Where it's like we're gonna have this 8-year epic told 3 panels at a time.
Oh god, and the people won't realize is though like. Like that's the precursor to the web comics.
Yeah.
Updated once a week for a few panels. But man, yeah, a lot of times you'd read those and they would try to give you an update, but
oh my
it was
god,
hard to keep track of it or whatever. Yeah, I like loosely. Well, I know Usagi Yojimbo. I remember growing up reading Usagi Yojimbo and stuff like that, and always really liked how like you could just read any Usagi Yojimbo story on its own. He might meet other characters from past stories, but there was never this sort of continuing story. And I just like the idea, like all you have to know he's a wandering samurai. And there's that. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. The spooky Halloween colors, that's what I'm trying to go. So it's mixing Halloween and barbarians, which is an odd combination, but then I just like to mix weird stuff together.
I mean, I'm into it. It's dope. Right. Oh, yeah, we have been that Silverline show on Tuesday. We'll be back next week. Be sure to check out Wednesday Wham! Silver Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, Wednesdays and Sundays.
We have a guest tomorrow night. I can't remember the name of the guest.
Yeah. So I have something over here now. We actually created a calendar so I can actually see what our topics are ahead of time.
Yeah.
Oh, they sent it to the wrong email. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna have Chris Wozniak tomorrow. It looks like. Yeah.
So that should be cool.
Next Tuesday, we're gonna be talking about inking. So hopefully Jose can make it.
Will you talk about inking next week?
Yes.
Back then, I actually started digitally inking. It's sad that I can usually digitally ink. I can ink stuff way faster. Strange enough, just because I'm not dipping the brush as much in the ink. You take that away, and pretty soon you're boom. So yeah.
Yeah. Those ones things were like it's a second, but if you do something for a second for several hours at a time.
You know what's funny? Speaking of Prince Valiant, he had to read Prince Valiant. When I went to the Joe Cuber school back in the day, I went for like 3 or 4 months, and I got home. I was very young, got homesick, and came home. Went to another school. But when I was there, I'm trying to remember her name. There was a guy who inked all the chainmail on the Prince Valiant. I think it was Prince Valiant cartoon strip. His name was Tex. I think his name was Tex. And he was an old guy in his 70s. And what was so funny is every time he'd give us our assignment, he would just sit and sleep in front of the classroom, like just nod off in his chair and sleep as we were working. He was a really, really funny guy. But I remember him, he said because I know this because he complained about inking all the chainmail in the Prince Valiant comic. So if you read Prince Valiant and see all the chainmail that they had to ink, just think of poor old Tex sitting there with his brush, cursing the artist for drawing all that.
Yeah.
Saying that,
yeah. Jeez. All right. Well, we'll be back next week, and hopefully Jose shows up for the episode about inking, since he is an
inker.
An inker.
He keeps telling me that.
Right.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, hopefully see you guys next week, and until that time,
make mine Silverline.
Make mine Silverline. We had an end here somewhere. We got moved.
Got moved around.
There we go.
I'm April Hunter. Make mine Silverline.
All right.